Hey everybody, thank you for joining me today on Growing the Home Garden. I'm Dave, and today we are going to be taking these crepe myrtle cuttings that I started around May 6th or so, and we're going to transplant them into 3-gallon pot sizes. They are doing extremely well, and if you'll take a look at that, they've got roots coming out the bottom just like that. So they are really ready to get transplanted up. So in this video, we'll go through the transplanting process, but I'm also going to talk about some of the signs that they need to be transplanted. In case you're looking at it, there's some signs you can look at for the leaves and stuff, and obviously the roots coming out the bottom is a really good indicator too. At the end of the video, I am going to add an update. There was a viewer who requested an update on my Sango Kaku Japanese maple that I planted and how it's doing. It's planted in a full sun location, so we're going to go through and we'll talk about that just a little bit. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at these crepe myrtle cuttings. So without even looking at the pots here, I can tell that these are ready to be transplanted or needing to be transplanted. And there are some sure signs of this. If you look here on this one, it's got lots of nice, really dark foliage, and that's exactly what you want to have on the plant. And it's doing well. You can even see that it's got some buds that are forming. I really don't care about those this year. Later on, we definitely want it to be blooming profusely, but for right now, these are not necessary. So you could actually trim them off so they can exert more energy into growing the rest of the plant. But one of the sure signs that you need to transplant is when your leaves start to look like this. You can see here, there's fading, they look a little bit lighter of a green, and you can see on the same plant. And that's just due to a nutrient deficiency. They aren't getting enough of what they need in the pot in order to successfully produce this kind of a colored leaf. A lot of times it's just like an iron deficiency perhaps, or it could be a few different things. But fixing it is really easy because we are just going to upsize it to a more appropriate size container. Now, I did go through, and you can see those little blue dots there. Those are just a slow release fertilizer that I put into these, which has really helped them to spur on growth up to this point. As you can tell here, this is probably a 16-inch or maybe a little bit bigger than that plant at this point, if you're just talking from the base of here to the top. So let's go through. We're going to mix up some potting soil to actually pot these up into some 3-gallon containers, and then we'll take a look at what the roots look like. I have a bunch of old containers that I've just kept from previous plants that I've purchased, so I'm just reusing a lot of them. These are about 3-gallon size. 3-gallon size pots do not actually hold 3 gallons of material. They're a little bit less than that. There's probably like around 2.5 or so, something like that. If you want to get an exact measurement, just measure the diameter and the radius and all that kind of stuff. Do your math calculation based on doing a circle, the area of a circle, times the height of the container, and you'll get an approximate amount of how big they are in inches and square feet, and you can do your conversions that way. So, but you didn't come here for a math class, so let's go on and talk about the soil. While I was pulling these old containers out of where I had it, I discovered I had a big container here that apparently I put a whole bunch of leaves in a long time ago, and it's all broken up real nice and finely. So I'm going to use some of this in the mix. In fact, I'll use the whole thing to make the mix, but it's not going to be the only thing that I put in my soil mix. I'm just going to take this and dump it into my mixing container and make sure that any roots or weeds that might have grown in here are removed. So I'm going to attempt to make an equal 50-50 percentage of the leaf mold and the soil conditioner here. I'm just visually doing this. The exact volume is not that huge of a deal. This is soil conditioner, and you can get this at your local hardware stores. Your big box stores typically will have it. And what's good about it is it creates some good drainage for the plant. Of course, drainage is very important. You don't want to end up getting a waterlogged root system that can contribute to fungal diseases and other issues that we just don't want to have. And the leaf mold is great because it's got some good organic matter in it, and it will continue to break down and feed the plants organically. We got to have something in there to help create that soil base. But we're going to add something else as well. So I'm going to use some bagged compost here. This is Black Cow. You can get this at your local hardware stores too. And it's all right. If you're making your own compost, that's ultimately going to be better because you know what's going in it. and it looks like I need a little bit more. I'd like to have about a quarter of the mix be this compost right here. So I'm going to add those things together, and we're going to add some core to the mix. So here's a new bag of compost, newish. This one was closed, so it's dry. Soon we'll go ahead and we'll mix all this. So that's roughly what I'm going for as far as my mix goes. And next up, I'm going to add some core, which is made from coconut husks. So then I'm shooting for another 25% portion for the core. My exact amounts I'm not terribly concerned about. The core itself will actually give a lot of moisture retention to it, so hopefully we're creating a mix that's going to be a hybrid of well-drained as well as retaining moisture, because, I mean, plants are finicky sometimes, and that's what they need. Well-drained, and they need to retain moisture. So I'm just going to mix up our mixture here, turn it over until we get everything all very thoroughly integrated together. This should be pretty good for right now. You can see here it is fairly well drained. It is loose. We had some dry material, we had some wet material, so hopefully it will all kind of level out, and we'll of course give the plants a good watering when we're done transplanting them up. So the next step is just to take this, put about half of it into each pot so that we have a good base in the pot, and then we'll fill it up from there. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of our root systems so you can see how they look. Remember, May 6th is about when we did these cuttings to start from. You can check that video out. I'll stick a link here and in the description so you can see what kind of progress they've made since then. And today we are kind of in the 3rd week of July, so that I guess is, almost 3 months. So let's take a look. All right, so we're going to go through these and check out what the roots look like. Fortunately, we have a nice cloudy day that we can put them out here without risking them drying out too well. This one, of course, you can see we've got some of the leaf issue going on here, and I'm going to take it out of the pot. The other thing that can cause this leaf issue is too much moisture, where it's wiping away or washing away all the nutrients out of the soil, and it just doesn't have enough to keep going. So that's another thing that we could potentially be seeing that from. So here we go. That is a really nice looking root system. It's not pot bound at all. We did see it coming out the bottom with some of these beginning strands of root that were kind of coming out those holes. So we're catching this at a really good time. We'll just break these up a little bit to kind of loosen them so they can expand into the new soil. Set that one aside, and we'll check this one. You can see the roots coming out the bottom there, and it's in a very similar state, which makes a lot of sense since they were all done at the same time. This one here was in a square pot, and these pots are probably about 6-inch size pots. Definitely time to get them upgraded so they'll have plenty of room to grow through the fall and then hopefully overwinter in those. You can see that. And what's interesting is you can see all the roots are down at the very bottom right here. They were all headed right toward where the water is, because this was a solid 10-20 tray, and you can bottom water into these, and so they'll come in and then they'll just soak up the water from the bottom of the pot, which makes it very, well, I wouldn't say easy, but easier to maintain when you have drought conditions, because you can just see is there water in the container and adjust if you need to. So there we go. We've got a lot of really good looking roots. Now these last two I saved for the end of this part, because both of these were plants that were checked on and then put back into the original medium. So that's not, there was a potting mix in the other pots, but this is the original core and sand mixture that I started them with. And you can see here that they've definitely got some of that leaf discoloration happening. The other cuttings did not continue to grow, but you can see there, that one did really well. Nice looking root system on it. And our last one, looking pretty good. So next up, let's get these things into their new homes. So I've gone ahead and I filled up this container probably about 2/3 of the way up. I want the top of the cutting right here to be the very top of the soil mix. So I'm just going to set it up here, and I am perfectly okay with leaving a couple inches around the very top here. That way, when I do water, if the water kind of pushes the soil up for a second, it's not going to just spill out and overflow. So you can leave a little bit of a gap up there. This thing has plenty of room to grow down into the soil, and it'll be just fine. And I'm going to just kind of tuck some dirt around the base real quick, and then we'll just fill in up and around it. And I'll just use another pot to kind of bring over more soil to it and fill it up and around. And if you get too much, just take a little out. But what will end up happening is as you firm it down, and the reason you do that is so that you have your roots tucked up against the soil and that there's no air gaps in it. But what will happen is when you water, some of this will settle even more because you're not going to get all the air gaps out. And so you might want to come back in with a little bit more soil after that. And I'm going to just firm everything up, and we'll leave it at that until after we've done a good watering on it. We'll go through and do all the rest of these in exactly the same way. There really shouldn't be anything different with them because they all did pretty well. And we'll get these 7 Tuscarora Crape Myrtles all potted up. And so here are the 7 Crape Myrtles. You can see I accidentally damaged this one, so I'm just going to pinch that tip off there. It should be fine. But the rest of these look really good. They should start to recover from this little nutrient deficiency that they've had. I'm also going to use some of this fertilizer here, which is a 19% nitrogen, 6% phosphate, and 12% potash. So that's your NPK ratio there. The nitrogen should help a lot of good leaf growth, which is what we want at this point. We want them to grow leaves. We don't really want a lot of flowers and blooms because that's energy exerted toward something other than what they need to grow. We need leaves so they can start to develop their own roots. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on each pot. Remember, a little bit of this stuff can go a long way, so we're just going to do a few in each one. I'm not a huge fan of the synthetic fertilizers. I definitely prefer organic, but in this case, these are going to be in the pots for a while. And a lot of times organic fertilizers are very low ratios, and so they will get used up very quickly. These are going to be a slow release, so it should last a lot longer, and it'll be less monitoring that I have to do. But the plants are going to enjoy it just fine. So that's what we've got right there. I'm going to water them next, and then these are going to be done for a while until they get a little bit of size on them. I would really probably wait on actually planting them until sometime in the spring. And I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to do with these yet. I've got some ideas, but we'll just have to see. I've got to figure something out. And in case you're wondering, those crepe myrtles are in a full sun location. This spot where I'm at, if it weren't for the fact that we had clouds overhead, it would be in a bright, harsh sunlight. And that brings me to the other subject of the video, this Sango Kaku Japanese maple. And you can see here, it looks pretty good. It is in a full sun location. It has not had any major difficulties. Our first month of planting it, it was extremely dry. So I had to water this every day, if not every other day. But it came through just fine. And now it's been raining regularly, and I'm barely doing any kind of water. Actually, I'm not doing any watering on this one anymore. So it is doing fine as long as we have the rains coming. If we start to get into a drought situation, I'll go back to watering. But check out the graft spot on the bottom of this plant. That graft was a bright green when we first got it. You can see that it is adapting and it's changing now. It's getting more mature. The coloration on it has changed. Everything looks nice and healthy. The other thing that I did initially when I planted it, I wasn't really considering the wind that we had here. And in the springtime, the wind can be really strong on a certain part of our house, which happens to be where I put the tree. So what I did is I didn't plant them. You don't plant rocks, you just put them down. But I put a couple of rocks down on top of the base of the plant to keep it from rocking too much, just to kind of let it get established, let it get its roots into the ground. And that has actually done a really good job. I know it's been a couple months on this, and there doesn't seem to be hardly any movement of the tree. The trunk is looking great. The leaves are what you would expect in summertime right now. Now, one thing about a tree in its first year, it generally is not going to do a whole lot of growth, or at least not growth that you're going to be able to see. It is working on reestablishing a good, strong root system down under the ground. When they are dug up from the field, or if they're grown in pots, you know that their root system is very limited. And a tree is going to want to expand out well past the drip line of the foliage for the roots, because that's what they do. They've got to be out that far in order to gather up the rain from the outmost edges of those root systems. So this tree is perfectly on schedule. I have had no major issues from it at all, other than the things that I've covered already here in this video. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it grows next year, because next year should be the year where the actual foliage really starts to take off. So your first year with trees, they tend to just be a little bit visually stagnant, but they are still working. So I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Hopefully you learned something in this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time here on Growing the Home Garden. Thanks for watching.